You know what? I'm tired of giving people the benefit of the doubt. I think people are inherently evil, and I'll believe that until I'm proven wrong. Today on rLounge, convince me I'm wrong. Up first, 2 peas in a pod. Great aunts steal from their father and end up out of the inheritance. Well, my great-grandfather had 5 children. The 2 oldest, my granduncle and my grandmother, were good people, but sadly died when they were still relatively young. So by the time this story happened, there was only my great-grandfather and his 3 youngest daughters. My great-grandfather was not a good person, and his parenting methods were very questionable, which is why the 3 youngest daughters end up being horrible and entitled people. He was getting old and could no longer take care of himself, but only one of his daughters, Ginny, took care of him, while her 2 sisters, Lily and Emma, occasionally came to visit him. They always brought him gifts, but the truth is that they avoided it as much as possible, seeing their father. Lily and Ginny never got along as their mother made them compete with each other. It is also important to mention that Lily was the favorite. When the great-grandfather turned 91, the doctor reported that he needed to undergo 3 different surgeries. The money was not a problem since the grandfather was a Marine. Given his age and the number of surgeries, no one thought he would survive. So the weekend before the surgery, Lily and Emma took him to dinner and entertained him. They filled him with gifts and even brought him mariachi. The great-grandfather was very happy. Ginny was not invited. The day of the operation arrived, and Ginny was in the hospital with my mother when Lily came to make fun of her sister, insult her, and even told her what she was going to die of. Things got wild between the two so much that they started to fight, physically, but were quickly separated. Marines got involved. Lily left her after that, while Emma stayed to ask questions about how the great-grandfather was. She was acting very suspiciously. My mother thought it was a strange behavior for both of them and asked Ginny if there was anyone in their house. Ginny then left for her house while my mother took care of a great-grandfather. When she arrived, she discovered that someone had entered, forcing the lock, and had taken the great-grandfather's papers, his money, and guns. There was no doubt that Emma and Lily had stolen those things. But there's something they didn't count on. The great-grandfather survived, and not only that, he was as if nothing had happened. My mother is still surprised about how he woke up angry in the hospital, took off his IV, and had to be subdued by 4 male nurses. A funny story when she told it. No one told him anything, so it wouldn't affect him, but a week later when he was about to enter his house, Ginny told him. He saw red and called his daughters demanding that they returned his belongings. Reluctantly, they did it, although not all of them. Papers and money were missing. The great-grandfather later called his lawyer and withdrew them from his will, leaving everything to Ginny. A year later, he died. My mother and I believe that he would have lived longer if it wasn't for the betrayal of his daughters. After this event, his health deteriorated very quickly. And although he was not a good person, it is something that I would not have wished even my worst enemy. When Lily and Emma found out that they were left with nothing, they threw the tantrum of their lives. They still don't get over it for what I know. Ginny still lives in his father's house, and my mom is still in touch with her. Let's get some thoughts from the community about this story. Jalal starts us off. Dang. I know you say he wasn't a good person, but at least terrible people were not rewarded in the end. I'm honestly just imagining a bunch of gray-haired grandmothers fighting. I might be a bad person too, because that image is hilarious. The filthy daughter-in-law says, my mother is in an Alzheimer's unit. Her money is rapidly running out. She has maybe enough for 10 to 12 months. My ex-brother and his wife are certain that she is rich because whenever ex-brother asked for a loan, never repaid, mom and dad opened their wallets and gave it to him. If mom outlives her money, he's still going to be there after she dies with his hand out for his share. He's going to be pretty dang surprised when the executor of her will says, okay, which Barbie doll do you want? You can even have first crack at the Avon bottle collection. Wisp of the West chimes in. My aunt's like this. She pretended to want to spend time with my grandma before the end, stole what she could, blamed it on the nurses, sold heirlooms and stuff willed to others on eBay, then tried to go back for the rest the same day as the funeral. I've never heard my uncle, her younger brother, and my grandma's actual caretaker raise his voice before or since, but wow, he dang near shook the house. Yikes. It's sort of scary what people will do when it comes to a will and inheritance. People get really ugly. It honestly brings out the worst in people, and it's not shocking that they would try to do something like this, even though your great-grandfather wasn't the best. It's a shame that the aunts really let superficial crap get in the way. They were already in the inheritance, and they ruined their opportunity for themselves. Ah well, that's where selfishness and greed will get you. Do you have a similar story? What's your experience with inheritance? Next, a not-so-great great-aunt. Karen came back for her stuff after telling us that she didn't want garbage. Well, this is the second part of another post that I made, but deleted it. So here's the resume. About 4 to 3 years ago, one of my great-aunts, Emma, fight with her sister, and as a result, she got kicked out. Her sister gave her 3 months to find a place and move out. Emma told my mother about this, so my mom offered to help her find a place. She took her every weekend during those 3 months to see apartments, but in the end, my great-aunt didn't like any of them. She found little details in each one of them, and asked my mom directly if she could stay with us. My mom was hesitant since she knew how special her aunt was, but agreed. It didn't take long for hell to break loose. Emma started acting entitled even before she moved, but a brief list of some of the things she did during the little time she was there was: she threw some of my stepdad's stuff, some cooking spices and his razors, then, when asked about it, denied it and acted offended about the accusation. Made my uncle cry and have a panic attack. Told me I would never have a boyfriend because of my lack of femininity and rude attitude. Funny since I already had and still have one. Tried to throw my mom's furniture out so she could bring in her own furniture. Lost her key and then accused my family of stealing it because we didn't like her moving in. My stepdad showed her that the key was where she left it. She then turned around and ran back to her room. Accused my mom of trying to hit her after she entered my mom's room. She didn't. My mom just scolded her since it was a pre-established boundary she couldn't enter our rooms. And the last straw, she cleaned the house with chlorine. My mom scolded her since it is bad for my health and she already knew that. Well, after that, she told us she was moving out since we weren't welcoming and didn't even try to accommodate her. 2 weeks after she was out, but she left her stuff behind telling us that she didn't need that garbage and we could do what we wanted with it. She left multiple boxes, 2 old booksellers, and 1 couch. To be honest, I would have thrown all her things the moment she got out of the house, but my mom kept them all. So once we are all in context, this is what happened next. A year later, Emma's sister's chauffeur came to my mother's house asking when he would be able to come for Emma's stuff. This took my mother by surprise, but she told him she would only talk to Emma directly. The next day, Emma messaged my mom that she and the chauffeur were coming X day at X hour to pick up her stuff. My mom got mad and told her that no one was going to be in the house that day, so Emma demanded to know when she and the chauffeur could come for her stuff. My mom told her that she couldn't tell her right now, but that she would call her once she had an answer. Now, you should know that after my great-aunt left, she had bad-mouthed us all, accusing us of being cold-hearted monsters for kicking an elderly woman out, that all she wanted was to help us since we lived like pigs, and finally that my grandma would be ashamed of my mom if she was still alive. The last part really hurt my mom since she lost her mom when she was relatively young, but also because she used to think of my great-aunt as a second mom. So for these reasons, my mom didn't want Emma or the chauffeur to set foot in the house. Therefore, she picked a day and an hour, then messaged Emma. The day that Emma and the chauffeur would come, my mom, my uncle, and my stepdad woke up early and started moving Emma's things out. So when they both arrived, the door was closed and all her stuff was already on the sidewalk. My stepdad heard how Emma started screaming at the chauffeur, telling him to pick up that garbage and put it in the truck, and then they left. Now that I see it all written, I think the resume is a longer story, but I just wanted to share this last part because I still can't believe someone will take so much effort to recover things that they consider junk. But I guess I just will never understand Karens. If the community can understand, Atmosphere Lucky 1619 has the first shot. She seems like she is used to getting her way and blamed everyone else for her behavior. Good riddance. The OP replies, well, you would think so, but no, whenever she acted like this, our family always ignored her. Her kids had to even go no contact with her. I think she learned it from her dad, because it didn't matter how irrational or unfair he was, all of his kids had to follow his rules. You know, the respect older people because they are older than you BS. So once he died, I guess that she expected the same treatment. I think the only exceptions were when I was a kid and she got me in trouble. But it was because at the time, she wasn't that crazy and everyone assumed she was telling the truth since she was an adult and I was just a kid. On the bright side, after Emma moved out, my mom understood why I never liked her and that I had always told the truth, so yeah, good thing. What an absolute monster. She sounds like hell on earth. I would have definitely thrown out all of her stuff, or better yet, sold what I could and profited as much as I could off of that old wretched witch. Your mom's way too nice of a person. I can't believe she agreed to your aunt moving in with you. It would have taken me everything to not accidentally throttle her and make it look like an accident. Do you have a wretched old woman for an aunt? Let us know below. Next, this aunt just keeps on giving. Karen wants her university certificate. For her career, she didn't finish. As usual, this Karen is one of my great aunts, Emma. This is an old story that didn't happen to me, but to my mom, so excuse me if I don't know all the details. About 15 to 20 years ago, Emma was living alone in Canada. She was already divorced from her husband and decided that she wanted to study a postgraduate course. One of the requirements for this course was obviously her university certificate. She studied at a university in her country of origin, which is also my family origin country, but she claimed that she never did the paperwork to obtain it. She called the university and explained the situation, to which they responded that the process had to be done physically by her or another person. Since Emma was living in another country, she thought about my mom. She lived near the university. She called her and asked as kindly as possible if she could do this favor for her. My mom, who at the time adored Emma and was excited that she wanted to continue her studies, accepted. Please note that my mother was a baby when my great aunt went to college. Next weekend, my mom went to the university and asked for the information. They tell her where she should start the process, and when she arrives, a nice woman attended her. She asked for my great aunt's personal information and searches in the database, but no result. Weird, my mother thinks it could be a mistake related to my great aunt's names. She has 3, like my grandma, who always had trouble because of it. So they tried different possibilities. No result. The nice woman then told her that maybe they could check the physical archive that's under the university, and my mother accepts. We're talking about a building with several floors and tons of files, since this is where every graduate papers are, and it's the biggest university in my country. They spent hours trying to find them, but no result. The nice lady then explains that maybe there was a mistake with my great aunt's papers. It would be extremely rare, but possible. But if great aunt sends all the information that would prove she indeed graduated, a new certificate could be done. My mom thanked the information and calls Emma. She got mad but said that she will look for them, then hung up. Months later, my mother went to visit Emma's sister, and this story comes out. Emma's sister looked at my mom and says, "What do you mean? She never finished college." Let's see what the community thinks about this one. Savvy Boy says, "How long ago was this? Even if she didn't complete the program, there still should be record that they were enrolled." The OP replies, "Well, since my mom, 53, was a baby when Emma was at college about 50 years ago or so. Also, this became my university as well, although it was a different career. So I know you have double the time estimated for your program, plus 2 years. For example, if your career is planned to be finished in 4 years, then you'll have 10. Otherwise, they get rid of your info." This woman literally just needed to hit the grave already. She's putting a bad taste in my mouth. Next, a Karen with far too much pride. Karen breaks the windshield of my car because I told the truth. This story is my mother's, mom for the history, but it was so shocking that even today she gets angry just remembering it. For context, my mother is a teacher in a school for low-income children. Each group has 2 teachers, one for the morning shift, mom's shift, and one for the afternoon shift. As the children spend so much time in school, the school offers breakfast service, milk and cereal, for a ridiculous amount. Let's say 50 cents a day. I'm not from the US, but it is approximate to when it happened. This amount is paid per month to the assistant director, AD, and although most parents pay punctually, there are always people who are late or even try to not pay. Karen was one of the last. Karen's daughter was my mother's student. It turns out that one day Karen decided to stop paying. It was a government school, so the only thing that could be done was for the assistant director to remind Karen daily when she picked up her daughter that she had to pay under the threat that after a certain time her daughter would be denied breakfast service. After 3 months of refusing to pay, the assistant director told Karen that if she did not pay tomorrow, her daughter would not be received unless she brought her own lunch. That's when Karen got the brilliant idea to say that she had already paid the money to Mom that morning. The assistant director found it strange since teachers have forbidden to receive money. Karen insisted that it was the truth, and since Mom had already left, they could not clarify the situation. So she let her go on the condition that the 3 of them would meet tomorrow to clarify the situation. The next morning, before Karen arrived, the assistant director told Mom what happened and asked her if it was true. Mom was surprised. She denied receiving the money, saying that 1. It was forbidden for teachers to receive the money. 2. Mom did not have time to talk to the parents in the morning since that was when she received the children, and Karen was always late, so there was no opportunity for them to talk. In the afternoon, she picked up her daughter with the afternoon teacher. When Karen arrived and the 3 of them spoke, Mom repeated her arguments denying receiving the money. Karen was furious, but she didn't complain or yell at Mom. She simply said she would pay tomorrow and didn't even apologize. There is one small detail I forgot to mention. My mom had just bought a car. Her previous car was stolen, and with the insurance money, she bought a nice 4-door Chevy. The next day, she was arriving at work and getting out of her car when she saw Karen arrive with her daughter, and Karen looked at her. Mom had a bad feeling but didn't think much of it and went into the school. Well, when she left work, the windshield of her new car was smashed. The next time she saw Karen, she smirked. She tried to prove it was her, but there were no witnesses, no cameras, so she couldn't. Karen smashed her windshield because Mom ratted her about the $45 debt. Let's see the community's reaction to this. JackStay67 says, "What your mom has encountered here is the new species mutation of Karens called the limbo Karen. How low can you go?" The study of this entity has yet to be peer-reviewed, but there is growing evidence of their existence. Happy Rate 7461 chimes in. "So what she thought, that the assistant director was going to make your mom pay for her daughter's meals? The audacity." Why take it that far? It was honestly $45. Why didn't Karen just pay for it? I get it's a low-income school, but even if you couldn't pay the $45, maybe there was some other payment plan that could have been negotiated or something if someone was really in a bind. What was the big deal? And aren't there usually cameras in parking lots like that? I refuse to believe there weren't any cameras. I feel like there should have been some type of proof caught on camera, especially at school. But if you're that hung up on your own pride to ask for help, maybe smashing a windshield isn't the best idea? Have you ever had anything like this happen to you? Tell us in the comments below. Lastly, what do you do when a stranger calls? "Ma'am, I assure you, I'm not your husband." One day, while I was about 15 or 16, I was just relaxing in my room when a phone call entered my cell phone. It was an unknown number, so I didn't answer. But 5 minutes later, it sounded again, so I just picked it up. The second I answered, a woman asked me, "Josh, honey, why didn't you pick up the first time? Where you at?" There was no doubt this woman had dialed the wrong number. So I just told her. I thought it would be the end of it, but then she said, "No, it's not. Where are you, Josh?" I was confused, not only because she was so confident, but also because I was a 15 or 16-year-old female by that time, so my voice couldn't sound like a man's one. So I repeat, "No, sorry, I'm not Josh. You've dialed the wrong number." But she didn't believe me. She said, "This ain't funny, Josh. Quit it out. Where you at? Are you with her?" Now I know that at this point I should have just hung up, but I was a naive teenager who was really confused. So I just answered as firmly as I could. "Ma'am, I assure you I'm not Josh, so please check the number you dialed." She stormed off and started screaming at me, saying how I could do this to her, and after all they've been through and a lot more stuff. I stare at my phone for a moment before hanging up. My phone blew up for some minutes until I turned it off, and then all I could think about was poor Josh. Let's see if the community feels the same way. Cyanide and Sugar says, "Maybe this Josh gave her the wrong number. The woman sounds crazy enough that this guy may not even exist. Anyone who can't accept wrong number has issues." A deleted account says, "A couple of years ago, an older man called my phone continually looking for Gilbert. The first few times I was polite and told him that he had the wrong number, but he didn't believe me and insisted he had the correct number. He called multiple times for days. Another time, a woman called my number, and when I answered, she said, 'Who's this?' I laughed and said, 'You called me, so who are you looking for?' She practically screamed at me, 'My husband!' I laughed and told her she had the wrong number. She argued with me, convinced she had the right number. I hung up. She must have checked the number she dialed because she never called again." Prize Storage 5575 says, "So you called but stormed off?" Little Crit 75 says, "I think OP meant that the crazy person went off on her and started screaming at her." The OP replies, "Yep, sorry, English is not my first language." There are some crazy people out there, and it never ceases to surprise me. I totally would have blocked the number. How can people literally be so stupid? Or you could have totally gone along with it, pretended to be Josh, and had a little bit of entertainment for the night. Could you imagine? Thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below.